If you're buying or selling a home and everything feels smooth, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a very good chance that your agent, hopefully that's me, is working through some behind the scenes things that you have no idea about. And honestly, that's a good thing.
You're listening to the Houses and Spouses podcast with Ryan Hamilton. Ryan Hamilton is a real estate agent with Good Oak Real Estate and the heart behind the I Do Guru, helping people build strong foundations, both in their homes and in their marriages. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Houses and Spouses podcast with Ryan Hamilton. I am said Ryan Hamilton. In this podcast, we talk about real estate, we talk about relationships, and we talk about everything in between. I'm a real estate agent here in Arizona with Good Oak Real Estate, and I'm also a wedding officiant with the I Do Guru, which basically means that on any given weekend, I'm either helping someone buy a house or I'm helping them marry the person that they bought a house with. And all right, before we jump in today, you know it, the tradition, we've got to keep it going. Here's your dad joke for the episode, and we're going international style today. So, you know, in Britain, they use a lift, right? And then in here in the States, we use an elevator. I guess that just goes to show you that we are raised differently. Okay, let's get into it. So today I want to pull back the curtain a little bit. If you've ever bought or sold a home, or you're thinking about buying or selling a home, you probably assume it's mostly paperwork, it's signatures, it's inspections, and then boom, here's your keys to the new buyer, and then here's your payout to the new seller. Yes, that is definitely part of it, okay? But most people don't see is what is happening behind the scenes during a transaction. So today I'm going to share a few real life scenarios that were inspired by things that I've experienced in my 10 plus years in real estate. I'm not going to use any names. I'm not going to use any identifying details, just real situations and what they actually mean for you as a buyer or as a seller. Because here's the truth. Real estate is rarely boring. It is very often emotional. Sometimes it's funny, especially if you're working with me. Occasionally it can be tense. But when it's handled correctly, it still gets everyone to the finish line. So let's get into it. So let's talk about the inspection panic. A buyer finds a house they love. We get under contract. Everyone's excited. Then the inspection report comes in, and it is long. It's really, really long. Here's something that most buyers don't know. Inspectors and their reports will document everything. They have to. Not just major issues. They're reporting and documenting everything. Loose outlet cover, caulking separation, roof showing normal signs of its age, minor cracks in homes that are very, very common here in Arizona. The buyer reads it late at night, and suddenly now that house that they felt was perfect when we were just there starts to feel a little terrifying. So this is pretty common, and not because the house is bad, but because you see 60 pages of notes, your brain can often go into the worst case scenario. An inspection is not a pass-fail kind of a test. An inspector doesn't say, yep, I deem this house worthy, or nope, this house is not worthy. It's an information tool. Every home, even new builds, will have items noted. The key is knowing the difference between cosmetic, maintenance, and then legitimate concerns that you may want to think twice about. And this is where guidance matters, okay? Most inspection moments aren't disasters. They're moments that need calm interpretation from the inspector and then from your agent. And almost every time, once it's broken down clearly, the panic disappears and you can start to make a level-headed decision. So number 2, the appraisal curveball. You have a strong offer. You have solid comps, everything looks right, and then the appraisal comes in a little bit lower than you expected. Immediately, tensions rise. Seller starts to worry about their pricing this thing wrong. Buyer worries that they overpaid. Here's the reality. An appraisal is one professional's opinion of the value based on the recent data of the comps in your area. It's not emotion. It's not Zillow. It's not what your neighbor thinks that their house is worth or the person walking through the open house said that they think it's worth. Some appraisals come in perfectly aligned with our purchase price. Most of them do. Sometimes they don't. What matters is having options. If an appraisal comes in low, you've got the option to renegotiate the terms of the transaction. You can challenge the appraisal. You can adjust your financing, or you can meet somewhere in the middle of all these things. Appraisal issues won't automatically kill a deal. They just require strategy, and they require communication both with your agent and the cross agent in the transaction. The worst thing about a low appraisal isn't necessarily the numbers, it's the uncertainty that comes with the next steps. And that's where experience makes a difference, keeping everyone steady, everyone calm, and then we explore the solutions and try and get you to the closing table. Now let's talk about the emotional freeze. And this one isn't really about inspections or numbers, it's about emotion. So I've worked with a family once that was relocating to Arizona for a new opportunity. New city, new schools, big time life shift. We get under contract. Everything is progressing normally. Everything's going great. And then one evening, the buyer calls and says, look, I don't know if we're making the right decision here. What changed about the house? Nothing. What changed about the financing? Absolutely nothing. What changed was the weight of the moment and the decision they were making to make this big move and uproot their life where they were coming from and reestablish a life here in Arizona. So buying or selling a home isn't just about square footage, okay? It represents stability, security, it represents change. Sometimes it represents risk, and that can feel overwhelming. So in moments like that, my job isn't to push the deal forward. It's to slow down. It's to ask the right questions. It's to help my clients reconnect to the why they got under contract and why they're buying a home in the first place. Most hesitation in real estate isn't really about the house that you're buying. It's about the fear of change. And once that's acknowledged and talked through, clarity can usually follow. It doesn't mean we're always going to make it to the end. It doesn't mean we're always going to close that house, but we're going to try and go into this situation with our eyes open and our thoughts clearly understood. And finally, let's talk about open houses, okay? And I've had some doozies. From the outside, open houses can look calm, right? From the inside, it's a mixed bag, to say the least. You can prepare everything perfectly. You can have the snacks. You can have the music. You know, the seller cooks some cookies and it smells delicious. And you might even have the taco truck or the snow cone truck outside. But then a neighbor comes and parks directly in front, blocking all the signage. Someone loudly critiques the pricing. They're in the kitchen and just talking smack about where you're priced at. A couple sitting in the living room debating the school districts and whether or not they think this one is good. One visitor asks, after 5 minutes walking through the house, "What's the lowest they'll take for this property?" Here's what sellers need to understand on open houses. Open houses aren't just about immediate offers. They very rarely are about immediate offers. They're about feedback, getting feedback from neighbors, getting feedback from buyers that are out looking. It's about positioning. It's about generating traffic. It's about getting a handle on the market temperature. Sometimes the chaos you see isn't a problem. It's information, and we use it to react proactively to the market. And I can tell you that this information and information in the real estate game is powerful. So here's the bottom line. Real estate transactions are rarely straight lines, okay? They're zigging and they're zagging. There's moments of tension. There's going to be moments of doubt. There's going to be moments of negotiation that can feel a little tense. But with the right communication, steady guidance, most of those moments are just that. They're moments. They're just moments that come and they go. So if you're buying or selling, the goal isn't to eliminate every single surprise. It's to have someone walking you through those surprises calmly, maybe helping you anticipate what surprises may come. But because behind every smooth transaction that closes, there are probably a few things that you never knew were happening. And that is exactly how it should be. So, thank you for joining me on this quick mini episode as we talked about some of those stories that can kind of stick with buyers and sellers and kind of put them in a rough spot through the transaction. These are all kind of based on things that I've seen happen, I see happen on a regular basis. And if you want to have a conversation about anything that I talked about today, or if you need some advice or just want to talk real estate in general, reach out. Happy to help. Thanks again for joining me on another episode of the Houses and Spouses podcast with Ryan Hamilton. I, of course, am Ryan Hamilton, real estate agent with Good Oak Real Estate here in the Arizona, Phoenix, and Tucson areas, and wedding officiant with the I Do Guru. And looking forward to seeing you next week. And again, thanks for listening.
This has been the Houses and Spouses podcast with Ryan Hamilton. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs it. For real estate help or a wedding ceremony crafted with care, connect with Ryan online. See you next week.